My wife had the child when she was very young, under difficult circumstances. Her parents pressured her to give up the baby and essentially raise him as their own, cutting her out of his life in the process. My wife was devastated by this, but didn't feel she had any power to fight it at the time. She distanced herself from her family to avoid the constant reminder of the child she lost, and that's why she never mentioned it to me or tried to reconnect with them. The guilt and pain were too much for her, and in her mind, shutting that chapter of her life was the only way she could cope. Her family, particularly her parents, were indeed manipulative, which is why she wanted to keep her distance. Her sister was more sympathetic and seemed genuinely regretful that my wife and I were never told about her son. He's grown up now and has a family of his own. Apparently, he never knew my wife was his biological mother. He always thought she was just an estranged relative. I don't know if he wants to reach out, but I'm leaving the door open if he ever decides to. I'm still processing all of this, and it feels like a betrayal in some ways, but knowing the full story, I can understand why she did what she did. My wife carried this secret alone for so long, and I wish she had felt safe enough to share it with me. But I also understand that she was protecting herself from reopening old wounds. It's a lot to take in, and my emotions are all over the place, but at least I have some closure on that part of her life. I'm not sure where things will go from here, but I feel like I've finally unlocked a part of her story that explains so much about the pain and distance she carried all these years. This knowledge brings both sorrow and some strange sense of relief. The grief is still raw, but I hope that, over time, I'll be able to make peace with all of it. At first, it was subtle. The kind of small, almost unnoticeable jabs that leave you second-guessing yourself. A comment here, an offhand remark there. "Are you sure you can handle that?" she'd ask, with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was being too sensitive. But deep down, something felt off. As time went on, the little jabs turned into full-blown critiques. Nothing was off-limits. My cooking, my career, my ability to take care of her son. When I was your age, I already had 2 kids and a spotless house. She'd remind me, as if my accomplishments meant nothing compared to hers. No matter what I did, it never seemed to be enough. Family gatherings were the worst. I'd walk into a room, and her eyes would narrow, scanning me up and down. "Oh, that's an interesting outfit choice," she'd say, always dripping with condescension. I started dreading every holiday, every birthday, any event that meant I'd have to be around her. And the worst part, she always did it with a smile, so no one else ever noticed. If I ever brought it up to my partner, he'd just shrug. That's just how she is. She doesn't mean anything by it. But I knew better. This was no accident. Her toxic behavior seeped into every corner of our relationship. Suddenly, my choices weren't just mine anymore. Every decision I made was questioned, not just by my partner, but by her as well. "Don't you think you should do it this way?" she'd ask. Or worse, she'd go behind my back and convince him to do things differently, as if my opinion didn't matter. It became suffocating. I reached a breaking point one evening after a particularly painful family dinner. She had taken yet another dig at me, this time about our future plans for children, implying that I wasn't capable of being a good mother. That was the final straw. I could feel the tears welling up, but I refused to let her see me break. I knew it was time to set boundaries. The next day, I sat down with my partner and explained everything. How I felt invisible in my own life. How his mother's words were slowly eating away at my confidence. And how if things didn't change, I wasn't sure how much longer I could take it. It wasn't easy for him to hear. He was defensive at first. It's his mom after all. But as I laid out the countless examples, he started to see the pattern. He realized that this wasn't just me overreacting. This was real. Together, we confronted her. It was one of the hardest conversations we've ever had, but it was necessary. She didn't take it well at first, of course. There were tears, accusations. She played the victim card like a pro, but we stood firm. For the first time, I felt like we were truly a team. Setting boundaries wasn't an overnight solution. She still tries to push them from time to time, but now I'm stronger. I've learned that I don't need her approval, and I won't let her words define me anymore. This is my life, and I get to choose who has power over it. And her? She no longer holds that power. The fallout from that conversation wasn't immediate. At first, things seemed to get worse before they got better. My mother-in-law's passive-aggressive comments became more frequent, and she began spreading subtle gossip among other family members, painting me as the villain. It was painful to watch how easily the narrative shifted, and I felt like I was in a constant battle to prove myself. My partner was my rock during this time. He made sure to stand by me, reinforcing our boundaries and confronting his mother whenever necessary. It wasn't easy for him, either. He faced criticism from his family, but he was determined to support me. We grew closer through this ordeal, learning to communicate more openly and honestly about our feelings and expectations. One particularly challenging moment came when we hosted a family gathering at our home. I was anxious about how it would go, knowing my mother-in-law's propensity for drama. As expected, she made snide remarks throughout the evening, but this time I felt different. I was ready to handle it. When she started criticizing my cooking, I took a deep breath and calmly addressed it. I appreciate your feedback, but I prefer if we kept our comments constructive, I said. The room went silent. My partner backed me up, and slowly but surely, the atmosphere began to shift. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step forward. Over time, the situation improved. My mother-in-law started to respect the boundaries we'd set, though it was clear she wasn't happy about it. I began to notice a change in how she interacted with me, less hostility and more cautious politeness. It was clear that the power dynamic had shifted. In the end, this experience taught me a lot about myself. I discovered my own strength and the importance of standing up for what's right. I learned that setting boundaries isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about creating a healthier environment for everyone involved. My relationship with my mother-in-law will never be perfect, and I've accepted that. But I've learned to navigate it with confidence and assertiveness. And as for my partner and me, we're stronger than ever. We've faced a significant challenge and emerged from it with a deeper understanding of each other and our relationship. Setting boundaries with a toxic family member was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the most empowering. It taught me that I have the right to be respected and that I deserve to be treated with kindness and consideration, no matter who it is. As time went on, I found that the process of setting boundaries with my mother-in-law was more than just about managing her behavior. It was also about redefining my own self-worth and expectations. I began to understand that her toxic behavior was not a reflection of me, but of her own struggles and insecurities. This realization didn't make her actions any less hurtful, but it helped me detach emotionally from her negativity. The changes in our dynamic were subtle at first. My mother-in-law began to avoid confrontations, choosing instead to engage in more superficial interactions. The dinners and family events became less tense, though I always remained cautious. It was a delicate balance, managing a relationship that had once been so fraught with conflict. My partner and I continued to work together on our communication. We established regular check-ins to discuss how we were both feeling about the situation. This was crucial for maintaining our unity and ensuring that we both felt supported. It was important to me that my partner didn't feel torn between his family and our relationship, and he was always open about his feelings and challenges. We also sought external support. We started seeing a couples therapist to help navigate the complexities of dealing with family issues and to strengthen our relationship further. The therapy sessions provided a safe space for us to address underlying issues and develop strategies for handling future conflicts. It was a proactive step that reinforced our commitment to each other and to managing family dynamics effectively. On a personal level, I focus on self-care and building my own support network. I reached out to friends and other family members who could offer encouragement and understanding. I also engaged in activities that brought me joy and fulfillment, whether it was through hobbies, volunteering, or simply spending time with people who valued and respected me. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that setting boundaries was not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It required continuous effort, self-awareness, and sometimes tough decisions. But it was also an opportunity for personal growth. I became more attuned to my own needs and more confident in asserting them. The experience also brought clarity to other areas of my life. It underscored the importance of healthy relationships and taught me the value of surrounding myself with individuals who uplift and support me. It reinforced that I have the right to protect my well-being and that setting boundaries is a form of self-respect, not an act of aggression. In conclusion, navigating the complexities of a relationship with a toxic family member is challenging, but it is also transformative. It taught me that I am capable of creating a respectful and supportive environment for myself, regardless of external pressures. It strengthened my relationship with my partner and deepened my understanding of the importance of boundaries and self-care. And while the journey wasn't easy, it was ultimately a journey toward greater self-respect and personal empowerment. In the wake of setting these boundaries, I found myself on a path of profound personal transformation. This journey wasn't just about managing interactions with my mother-in-law. It was about reevaluating my approach to relationships and my own self-worth. One of the most significant changes was how I started to view my own needs and desires. Before addressing the toxicity in my relationship with my mother-in-law, I often prioritized others' comfort and approval over my own well-being. But as I learned to assert my boundaries, I began to see the importance of valuing my own needs and desires. This shift in perspective wasn't always easy to implement, especially when old habits and ingrained patterns of behavior resurface, but it was liberating. I became more assertive not only with my mother-in-law, but also in other areas of my life. Whether it was at work, with friends, or in other family relationships, I started to speak up more clearly about what I needed and expected. This newfound assertiveness was met with mixed reactions. Some people adapted and respected my boundaries, while others resisted or pushed back. I learned to navigate these responses with grace and clarity, reinforcing that my boundaries were non-negotiable. An important aspect of this personal growth was understanding and accepting that not everyone would be happy with my boundaries. It became clear that setting boundaries sometimes meant facing resistance and even conflict. I learned not to take this resistance personally. Instead, I saw it as a sign of the boundaries working as intended, a necessary step for protecting my own well-being. I also realized the importance of self-compassion. There were moments when I felt guilty for enforcing my boundaries or questioned whether I was being too rigid. In these times, I reminded myself that setting boundaries was not about rejecting others, but about creating a space where respect and mutual understanding could flourish. I practiced self-compassion by acknowledging my feelings, forgiving myself for any perceived shortcomings, and celebrating my progress. My personal growth also extended to how I approach relationships with others. I began to value relationships based on mutual respect and reciprocity. I gravitated towards individuals who demonstrated empathy, support, and kindness. This shift helped me build a network of supportive friends and colleagues who contributed positively to my life, further reinforcing the benefits of healthy boundaries. Reflecting on the overall process, I recognized that setting boundaries was not a one-time fix, but an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth. It involved regularly reassessing my needs, adjusting my boundaries as circumstances change, and maintaining open communication with those around me. Each step, each boundary set, and each challenge faced contributed to a stronger sense of self and a more fulfilling life. The experience also deepened my understanding of the importance of creating a balanced life. By addressing the toxicity in my relationship with my mother-in-law and focusing on my own well-being, I found a more harmonious balance between personal fulfillment and interpersonal dynamics. This balance was essential not only for my own peace of mind, but also for fostering healthy, supportive relationships. Ultimately, the journey taught me that setting boundaries is a powerful tool for maintaining personal integrity and fostering positive relationships. It's about creating a life where respect, understanding, and self-care are prioritized. And while the process is ongoing, it's a journey well worth taking, leading to a more empowered, authentic, and fulfilling life. The process of establishing boundaries with a toxic family member also brought about a deeper understanding of the dynamics of influence and control in relationships. It became increasingly evident that toxic individuals often thrive on ambiguity and a lack of clarity. By setting firm boundaries, I created a clear framework within which interactions could occur, which significantly reduced the potential for manipulation and conflict. In practice, this meant being explicit about my expectations and sticking to them. For example, if a boundary was crossed, I would address it directly and calmly, reiterating the established limits and the consequences of not respecting them. This approach not only reinforced the boundaries, but also helped to maintain consistency in my interactions. The clarity of my expectations helped diminish the opportunities for misunderstandings and disputes. Moreover, setting these boundaries necessitated a reevaluation of how I managed my time and energy. I became more deliberate in how I allocated my resources, prioritizing activities and relationships that nurtured my well-being. This involved saying no to requests or situations that would drain my emotional reserves or compromise my principles. By being selective about where I invested my time, I was able to focus more on activities and people that contributed positively to my life. One significant aspect of this journey was learning to deal with feelings of guilt and doubt. It's common to feel guilty about setting boundaries, especially when they involve family members. I often questioned whether I was being too harsh or if I should make exceptions. Through self-reflection and support from trusted friends and mentors, I learned to differentiate between guilt that stemmed from my own values and guilt that was imposed by others. This distinction helped me to stay firm in my decisions and to recognize when I was being unduly influenced by external pressures. An essential part of this journey was also learning to communicate more effectively. I invested time in developing my communication skills, focusing on being assertive without being confrontational. I practiced using I statements to express my feelings and needs clearly, such as I feel overwhelmed when, or I need space to. This approach minimized the potential for misunderstandings and fostered a more constructive dialogue. Another key lesson was the importance of self-care. The emotional strain of managing a toxic relationship and setting boundaries made it clear that self-care was not optional but necessary. I made a concerted effort to integrate self-care practices into my routine, whether through regular exercise, mindfulness, hobbies, or simply taking time for relaxation. This focus on self-care helped me maintain my emotional balance and resilience. The journey also highlighted the value of seeking external support. I found it helpful to engage in therapy or counseling to work through the complexities of my feelings and to develop strategies for managing difficult interactions. Professional guidance provided a safe space to explore my emotions and receive objective feedback, which was instrumental in navigating this challenging period. Over time, the practice of setting and maintaining boundaries became a natural part of my interactions, not just with my mother-in-law but with others as well. The confidence and clarity I gained in this process translated into various aspects of my life, leading to healthier relationships and a greater sense of personal empowerment. Reflecting on the entire experience, I recognize that while setting boundaries was initially challenging, it ultimately led to a more authentic and fulfilling life. It empowered me to take control of my own well-being and fostered a sense of autonomy and self-respect. This journey wasn't just about managing one difficult relationship, but about creating a foundation for a more balanced and respectful way of living. Navigating the process of setting boundaries with a toxic family member, such as a mother-in-law, proved to be an intricate journey of self-discovery and personal growth. As I delved deeper into this process, it became apparent that toxic individuals often exploit the lack of clear limits to exert control or create conflict. By establishing and maintaining firm boundaries, I was able to transform our interactions from a battleground of manipulation to a more structured and respectful exchange. One of the first steps in this journey was to clearly define and communicate my boundaries. This meant not only articulating my limits, but also being consistent in enforcing them. For instance, when a boundary was crossed, I addressed it directly, reinforcing the limits I had set and outlining the consequences for any further breaches. This approach served to diminish the potential for confusion and misunderstanding, creating a more stable framework for our interactions. Setting boundaries also prompted a reevaluation of how I manage my time and energy. I found that prioritizing my own well-being was crucial. This involved making deliberate choices about where to invest my resources and learning to say no to requests or situations that were detrimental to my emotional health. By focusing on activities and relationships that contributed positively to my life, I was able to maintain a healthier balance. A significant challenge in this process was dealing with feelings of guilt and doubt. It is common to experience guilt when setting boundaries, especially with family members. I frequently questioned whether my actions were too severe or if I should make exceptions. Through reflection and support from trusted friends and mentors, I learned to discern between guilt rooted in my own values and guilt imposed by others. This understanding helped me remain steadfast in my decisions and resist external pressures. Developing effective communication skills was another crucial aspect of setting boundaries. I worked on being assertive while avoiding confrontation. Using I statements such as "I feel overwhelmed when" or "I need space to" allowed me to express my needs and feelings clearly and constructively. This approach minimized misunderstandings and facilitated more productive conversations. The importance of self-care became increasingly evident throughout this journey. Managing a toxic relationship and maintaining boundaries required significant emotional effort. I recognized that self-care was not just a luxury, but a necessity. I made a conscious effort to integrate self-care practices into my routine, such as regular exercise, mindfulness, and engaging in hobbies. This focus on self-care helped me maintain my emotional equilibrium and resilience. Additionally, seeking external support was invaluable. Engaging in therapy or counseling provided a safe space to explore my feelings and develop strategies for managing difficult interactions. Professional guidance offered objective feedback and emotional support, which were instrumental in navigating this challenging period. As time passed, the practice of setting and upholding boundaries became more natural, extending beyond interactions with my mother-in-law to other areas of my life. The confidence and clarity I gained from this process not only improved my relationship with her, but also contributed to healthier relationships overall. It fostered a sense of personal empowerment and self-respect. Reflecting on this experience, it is clear that the journey of setting boundaries with a toxic family member, though initially difficult, ultimately led to significant personal growth and transformation. It was not merely about managing a single difficult relationship, but about cultivating a framework for a more balanced and respectful life. This process empowered me to take control of my well-being, establish healthier relationships, and live more authentically. The lessons learned in setting and maintaining boundaries have become integral to my overall approach to relationships and personal well-being. In conclusion, the experience of setting boundaries with a toxic family member underscores the importance of clarity, consistency, and self-care in fostering healthy relationships. It demonstrates that while the journey may be challenging, the rewards, such as increased self-awareness, personal empowerment, and improved relationships, are well worth the effort. This journey reaffirms the value of maintaining one's own well-being and respect, ultimately leading to a more fulfilling and balanced life.